Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Regulation C ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'm going to be trying out a very strong hyper offense team featuring all three of the choice items that the 2014 Worlds runner-up Jeudy used to finish top 16 at the Fort Wayne Regional Championships. This was, of course, the first Regulation C regionals here in North America, and I think Jeudy has built one of the best hyper-offense teams. Regulation C is known to be a really slow format, especially because of Pokemon like Ting-Lu and Wo-Chien decreasing the damage output of Pokemon, but this team kind of aims to just brute force through your opponent's team as quickly as possible. You've got Steel, Terra, Great Tusk, Choice Specs Fluttermane, as well as Choice Band Corviknight. I think the Corviknight set on this team is one of the coolest ones that I've seen in the entire Regulation C format. The idea is that you can bounce back Intimidates thanks to Mirror Armor, and there's a ton of Intimidate with Arcanine and Gyarados in the format as well, and you do a ton of damage with your attacks like Brave Bird, Iron Head, Terra Blast, and U-Turn. The team also has Murkrow, which is valuable against Dondozo teams and also in setting up Tailwind and Sunny Day, and you've got some more offense from things like Brute Bonnet as well. So, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing to the channel. Really helps out a ton, especially as we near 200,000 subscribers here. So, thanks so much as always, and let's get into things. Once again, a huge thank you to Jeudy for building and sharing this team, and congratulations to him for finishing the top 16 at the Fort Wayne Regionals. Jeudy is super close to qualifying for Worlds again, and he's built a lot of fun teams this season. As always, rental and paste are down in the description below. And question of the day, Corviknight's a really cool pick with this team. I just featured Dragapult on the channel as well, so I'm curious what Pokemon you think is currently being slept on in Regulation C. Now, when talking about the team, the first one I really want to highlight, of course, is this Corviknight. This is a Pokemon that I think very few people have used in general, and certainly not with the Choice Band offensive set. The idea behind Corviknight here is that base 87 attack's pretty decent, but you have an incredible ability in Mirror Armor, which is able to bounce back stat drops, which is really valuable against things like Intimidate, as well as Icy Wind from Iron Bundle, for example. The idea is that with this amount of speed investment, when you set up Tailwind with Murkrow, you outspeed everything in the format other than basically Electrode and Dragapult, and you critically outspeed things like Iron Bundle and Fluttermane, if they don't have booster energy. So the main idea is to do a lot of damage with this Pokemon. Corviknight also walls a fair amount of Pokemon, and one of the nice things is that there are a lot of strong ground-type attacks and ground-type users out there, whether it be things like Ting-Lu or Great Tusk, for example, and so Corviknight can wall those a decent amount as well, and you just deal so much damage with Brave Bird and Iron Head. U-Turn's also really nice. One of the leads I like going with this team is Corviknight plus Great Tusk, so you can U-turn out, pivot out Corviknight if you think it's at risk of taking a lot of damage, and then save it for the late game. But yeah, this pick is really cool, and it takes advantage of the fact that it's got great typing, and you've got access to Mirror Armor as well, which is, I think, a very strong ability currently in the format. So, as I mentioned, this team is a triple choice team, so you've got Choice Band Corviknight, Choice Scarf on the Great Tusk, as well as Choice Specs on Fluttermane. The Choice Scarf on Great Tusk here is a really nice call as well. I think Tusk is really strong in this format, especially since so many Pokemon are weak to ground-type attacks, but one of the issues with Great Tusk is that it often, just takes a lot of super effective damage from things like Palafin's Jet Punch. With Steel Terra, you can get around the super effective damage that you normally take from water-type attacks as well as fairy and flying-type attacks, so it's really good coverage across the board here, and the idea behind Tusk is to just, quickly weaken your opponent, use Headlong Rush to aim for one-hit knockouts or Earthquake just to chip away at everything. One of the nice things here is that it's also Adamant rather than Jolly, so it gives you a little bit of extra damage output, and honestly, that extra damage output has felt really noticeable in my time using this team. So I think, for a while, a lot of people were using like Choice, or not Choice Scarf, they were using Focus Sash or Life Orb on Great Tusk with Ground Terra, but on this team, I think Steel Terra is really nice, especially because you don't necessarily need to rely on Tailwind from Murkrow. Often you can just go with the fast mode of Corviknight, Tusk, Flutter, plus one of Chi-Yu or Bonnet in the back, for example, and I found that to be fairly effective, so yeah. Flutter here is a Choice Specs variant. It's modest max speed, and the idea here is to just outspeed pretty much all other Fluttermanes that are modest that don't run max speed investment, which is fairly common right now, and the idea is to just deal obviously as much damage as possible. One thing to call out here is the Psyshock rather than something like a Thunderbolt or a Power Gem. Psyshock is nice in getting around Assault Vests, and Assault Vest is a fairly common item in the format right now. It also helps against things that want to go for like Poison Terra, for example. I've seen Poison Terra on things like Wo-Chien and Ting-Lu as well, and so yeah, it gives you you some good coverage, which is really nice, and more importantly, it gets you around Assault Vest as well. So that's it for the choice users. To round things out, you've got Murkrow. Murkrow's made a reappearance here. Talonflame is kind of the go-to Tailwind user right now, it feels like, but Murkrow makes a lot of sense on this team for 2 reasons. You have Haze, which gives you a good Dondozo answer, and 2, you have Sunny Day. One thing that I haven't mentioned on this team yet is that you've got the Photosynthesis on Fluttermane, Great Tusk, as well as the Brute Bonnet, and so obviously all of those Pokemon have a lot of value to be gained from the Sunny Day, which is really nice. And what's cool is like you already are boosting, you know, one of your stats or one of your kind of offenses or speed, for example, through things like Specs and Choice Scarf, but with the Sunny Day, you can like further increase more stats as well, which is really sweet with this team. And so, yeah, I think Murkrow making a reappearance here, but it makes a ton of sense. And then Foul Play, obviously, just to get some good damage off across the board. Finally, you've got Life Orb Chi-Yu. This is not really anything out of the ordinary. The main thing about Chi-Yu is that you can synergize it with Fluttermane in particular. So Flutter Chi-Yu is just one of the strongest leads that exists in the format. However, of course, it is really frail as well. So you have to keep that in mind when using it. You're super weak to certain types, for example, and you can take a ton of damage and get one shot by a fair amount of Pokemon in the format as well. But the idea is if you lead Flutter and Chi-Yu, you can just put on so much pressure and ideally knock your opponent out before they even get a chance to move. The final Pokemon is Brute Bonnet. This Brute Bonnet actually does not have Protect, and it's got Sucker Punch as well. The main idea here is that the Brute Bonnet, first of all, actually offers as a really good defensive support with Redirection Rage Powder. Even though this Pokemon barely has any bulk, it's got great natural defenses and a great natural base HP to begin with. So the idea is you think about something like Palafin right now. It's one of the most common Pokemon in the format. Well, Brute Bonnet matches up really well into Palafin because Palafin generally uses Wave Crash, Jet Punch, Protect, and a 4th move. It's often Haze, but sometimes it's things like Ice Punch or Close Combat. Even then, it can't one-shot you. And so what Brute Bonnet does is redirect those, you know, priority Jet Punches away from its partner. That's really important, especially considering that Chi-Yu and Great Tusk are both weak to Jet Punch, and Flutter still takes a good amount from it as well. And so, yeah, the Rage Powder here is really nice. Bullet Punch and, you know, Spore are pretty standard. And then Sucker Punch is really nice just for finishing things off. This is like max attack Brute Bonnet, so it does so much more damage than your opponents generally anticipate as well. So a lot of ways that you can play with this team. Because it's so fast-paced, I don't think you actually often need Murkrow, but against opposing Tailwind teams and opposing teams that might have Scarf Mons that outspeed you or kind of are around the same level, then Murkrow is really valuable. For that, you could go like Murkrow Tusk as a lead and then finish off with any 2 of the 4 in the back. I really like Great Tusk plus Corviknight and then a combo of Chi-Yu, Flutter, and Brute Bonnet. Chi-Yu plus Flutter as a lead as well with, you know, some Pokemon in the back like Tusk and Bonnet or Corviknight can also be really strong. So yeah, this team aims to win games really, really quickly. It is super, super strong, and I think it's one of the best hyper offense teams I've tried so far in Reg C. So let's quickly highlight some weaknesses. So the first thing I'll comment about this team is that there's no Protect on 5 of the 6 Pokemon. The only Pokemon that actually has Protect is Chi-Yu, and so that you can take advantage of the fact that it's like super fast-paced, super offensive, but it generally has to lock into attacks, especially because there's 3 choice users, and it can't Protect very easily. And so, you know, often if you can kind of survive the brutal offense that's coming immediately, whether it be going for Protect to scout out for what they lock into and kind of bait out a Terra, if you can survive those attacks, then you can retaliate back with a lot more in return generally. Baiting out the Terra is especially important from things like the Great Tusk as well as the Bonnet and the Corviknight, because these are generally defensive Terras, but you can leverage that to your advantage once the Terra has been committed, especially because for something like Corviknight or Brute Bonnet, if you go for those Fire Terras, you suddenly become weak to water and ground, which can leave you a little bit more exposed, especially because those types are really common in the format. So that's one thing to consider. I think naturally with the hyper offense team like this, Trick Room is always a little bit scary. Now this team has so much offense that sometimes you can just deny Trick Room from being set up, but if your team has a way to just guarantee Trick Room going up, I think this team will struggle a little bit, especially because it can't Protect to stall out those Trick Rooms, for example. Naturally, Intimidate's good against Great Tusk and Brute Bonnet, but you have to really be careful about the Corviknight here because the Corviknight can just bounce back that Intimidate with Mirror Armor, and I love bringing Corviknight actually into matchups against like Arcanine and Gyarados, so that's some, you know, food for thought. I think one other thing to consider is if you have Pokemon that can like still outpace these Mons, for example, if you don't end up bringing Murkrow, your opponent has a Booster Energy Iron Bundle, which can Icy Wind everything. That can be a little bit awkward for these Pokemon because then even with Choice Scarf on Great Tusk, for example, you can kind of just neutralize that. And so opposing like really fast-paced teams that can kind of negate your speed advances or even drop your speed can also be a little bit tricky. And ultimately, this team is just really frail. And so if, you know, your Pokemon are bulky but can also do a lot of damage and you survive a big attack and retaliate back for a knockout, that's obviously huge. For example, something like Iron Hands, especially with Assault Vest and Heavy Slam, can pressure with Fluttermane. Iron Hands specifically, I don't think is actually that strong into the team, but it's just an example of something that's like bulky, can survive a hit and then retaliate back for a knockout. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for a couple of mentions there. Let's get into these games. Okay, we've got Wo-Chan, Fluttermane, Tyranitar, Palafin, Arcanine, and Meowscarada. I feel like I haven't really seen Meowscarada that much recently. Corviknight feels like it can be really good here. I think one of the debates I always have in these matchups is like, do I even want to lead Murkrow? Murkrow is somewhat valuable in setting up Tailwind, but I don't actually think it's that important. I honestly really like a Corviknight plus Great Tusk lead here, and in the back, I'm thinking Chi-Yu Flutter. Actually, no, I think I really need Brute Bonnet to beat Palafin, because otherwise Palafin can just hit everything for neutral, which is slightly concerning. So we'll go with that. And then it's between Chi-Yu and Flutter. I lean towards Specs Flutter here just because of its matchup into the Wo-Chien. What kind of forces it to Terra, otherwise we can obviously just go for a Specs Moonblast into it. So, yeah, I think one of the interesting things about this team is debating when to bring Murkrow and when not to bring it, and in this one, I'm not going for it because I think we have a pretty decent speed advantage relative to our opponent already. One of the things you have to consider when you use Murkrow is that it often can feel like dead weight after the beginning of the game. So, they're going to lead with Meowscarada and Palafin, okay. Against this, I think I'm okay committing Steel Terra here. Steel Terra and just like Earthquake. The question is what I want to do with Corviknight. Locking into Brave Bird's generally okay in this matchup. So, okay, Brave Bird, Steel Terra, EQ. Palafin here switching out makes a lot of sense. It's actually Meowscarada switching. What are you switching into? Okay, Arcanine, I'll take that. We're going to do a ton of damage here onto it, and we bounce back Intimidate thanks to Mirror Armor, which is one of the beautiful things about just this Choice Band Corviknight. It's interesting to see that the switch happened that way rather than the other way around. So I'm curious if Palafin actually decides to just attack here. They could, of course, Wave Crash, but since we went for Steel Terra, it shouldn't really do that much. Interesting, yeah. They decided not to go for a Terra or a Switch. Tusk does so much damage there. Palafin's actually faster than Corviknight, which is really good to confirm. And Wave Crash does under 50. Cool. I'll take that turn. We'll cleanly knock out the Arcanine here. And this just makes it harder for Palafin, right? Because it's like now you only have one potential Pokemon you can switch into after you bring out your final one. I guess they could go back into Meowscarada, obviously, and then they could pivot into their fourth one. But point being, Palafin's in kind of a weird spot right now. So Meowscarada comes back out. We have Brute Bonnet to deal with this. What's their switch in? Wo-Chien? I'd love to get rid of Meowscarada. Actually, why am I that worried about it given the Brute Bonnet and the Flutter in the back? I don't think I need to be that scared about it. So, like, I'm down to just Brave Bird and Earthquake into the Palafin slot because I could see it switching out here. Nice. What is that? Tyranitar. Okay. Works for me. They go for knockoff. And you outsped Corviknight. Or sorry, you outsped Great Tusk. So it's Choice Scarf knockoff? Huh, that's really interesting. Okay. That's okay with me. Yeah, I don't really think I've really seen that before. I just said really like 5 billion times. It's also interesting they chose to target the Corviknight slot instead. I think Great Tusk should survive a knockoff. I expect this to maybe Terra. But I think the combination of Bonnet plus Flutter is looking pretty good right now. I could consider switching Great Tusk out as well. I really think Tyranitar has to Terra here, honestly. Into what? Flying, maybe? I don't want either of these to get knocked off. I went for EQ Brave Bird. I'm not sure I love that play, but I think it's okay. So they're going to go for the Terra here. Yep, into Tyranitar. Flying, I would guess. Yep. I wasn't confident on Corviknight getting a knockout on that slot. I think U-turn on from Corviknight onto the Oh, Corviknight survives, nice. Yeah, I think U-turn would have been slightly better here. Probably doesn't really make a material difference, honestly. So we'll get the knockout here. With Brute Bonnet, I have Sucker Punch pressure. I mean, what is the Tyranitar going to do into the Tusk is my question right now. Because the other thing is, Flutter Mane now, I mean, the Palafin can't go for a Terra. Okay, they do have low kick here. That's actually perfect, though. I want 2 free switch-ins, because Great Tusk locked into Earthquake at -1 attack isn't really too valuable for me. But Choice Scarf Meowscarada I thought was a really interesting tech. But I think now, I guess my only concern is if, like, a Choice Specs Flutter doesn't KO. We should, right? Because you don't have the Sandstorm boost anymore. Rage Powder here. Psyshock also allows me to get around Assault Vest, so I think Rage Powder Psyshock here should win. Unless they have, like, a Rogue Protect on Tyranitar and Close Combat on Palafin. I think that's the only way they can get around this right now. This is why Brute Bonnet is a really big addition on this team, though, right? Because it's not only offense against the Palafin, it's also good defense against it. And being able to offer redirection support with that Rage Powder is huge. So this just protects me from, you know, like a Choice Band Jet Punch, for example. Yep, they end up not Jet Punching. Psyshock gets the KO. Cool. Yeah, unless they have Close Combat and they crit here, I think we should win. And even with that, they would still need to KO me with Jet Punch the next turn. Ice Punch, yeah, that's fine. We should live that. Yep. I guess a freeze here would make things interesting, but no freeze. Cool. With that, we've got Choice Spec Psyshock. We are slower than the Palafin, which is good to note. We can just go for Bullet Seed here as well as Psyshock. Yeah, and they end up not Jet Punching, which is why I wanted to go for Bullet Punch. But I think Psyshock just KOs. That was a crit, so we don't find out how much it does without the crit. But I figured there was no way Palafin could win the 2v1 from that position. I guess if they went for another Ice Punch on a Brute Bonnet, then you can go for the Jet Punch onto the Flutter. So I'm curious what the Psyshock damage calc specifically is into Palafin. I'm not sure I actually really needed to click Psyshock there, but I was just really worried about being like very, very specially defensive Tyranitar. Because if Tyranitar survives and gets an attack off, it's a complete nightmare for me. So I just wanted to guarantee the knockout onto that slot that turn. And a lot of Palafins don't even carry Ice Punch or Close Combat, right? They're Wave Crash, Jet Punch, Haze, and Protect. So against that set, the play I make just essentially wins immediately. So they did end up having Ice Punch, which made things more interesting. I'm curious if Palafin could have taken that Life Orb Choice Spec Psyshock plus Sand damage plus potential chip damage after. So yeah. That win gets us into the top 100, which is pretty cool. Honestly, I still feel pretty lost in this format. I feel like the teams that I've tried on Road to Ranked have just been really strong, and so they've been, you know, fairly intuitive to understand and try. But this format is really tricky, I think, especially because it's like slowed down a lot and there's so much bulk. My opponent here is a top 100 ranked opponent. They've got some really cool stuff. Iron Treads and Belly Bolt, as well as Mimikyu. And Chi-Yu is the room on here. Fascinating. What in the world do I do against this? I'm very lost right now. I expect it to be booster, Tusk, maybe plus speed. Sorry, I said Tusk. Treads. Man, what a cool team. I like just don't really know how to approach this in best of one. Part of me honestly wants to lead Murkrow for Tailwind. Corv is a really good switch in. Do I need Tailwind? It's just for this Tusk. Or sorry, Treads. I keep calling it Tusk. Triple choice. I'm gonna go with Brute Bonnet. Yeah, I'm deciding against Murkrow here, but that might be a problem for me if my opponent ends up just prioritizing the Great Treads. Sorry, Great Treads, Iron Treads. One way I could approach it is like Terra Blast it. That is Belly Bolt Treads. Yeah, there's the booster. Speed or attack? It is speed. What do I do against this? I expect this to like Flying or Water Terra. So maybe we try to snipe down the Treads as quickly as possible and switch Corviknight out into Brute Bonnet to take a potential electric type attack. Or water type attack. It could be like Water Terra into Muddy Water, Electric Terra into Thunderbolt, or Parabolic Charge. My idea was if I led Murkrow here, I could like Tailwind and then just go for like Earthquake. Belly should be a pretty good switch in for us here. Sorry, Brute Bonnet should be a good switch in into Belly. That's what I meant to say. Just go for Ice Spinner. It's fine, I guess. Even if this doesn't KO, I would think a Sucker Punch would finish it off. Okay, nice. Get rid of Treads immediately, so that's a good start. Maybe going for Steel Terra defensively with Great Tusk was the smarter decision there, though. But they just Thunderbolt. Okay, nice. I'll take that. That turn could have played out a lot worse, so all things considered, I'm really happy. Mimikyu comes out now. Oh, Mimikyu is interesting. It could be like Life Orb Play Rough, for example. The lack of Terra on Belly Bolt was certainly interesting. Also worried about Trick Room. I personally want to Fire Terra here and then double up on a Mimikyu. I definitely don't want to run. I don't know if that's necessary, and also I feel like I should conserve Great Tusk for Belly Bolt. I just really don't want to faint till a Life Orb Play Rough. We might not even faint even if they are Life Orb, though, honestly. I switched into Corviknight, I went for Spore, but like I don't love that play because they might taunt into the Brute Bonnet slot. I think Bullet Seeding here was probably better. But I went for Fire Terra to cover for Life Orb Play Rough. And if it ends up being like the offensive set and we get Spore off into Mimikyu, I'm in really good shape. I just can't say there's any guarantee of that. One thing to consider is also a late game end game with Tusk. Okay, they are going to Terra here, yeah. So I'd expect Flying Terra on Belly. Yep, cool. Flying and Water's most common on that set, I feel like. I mean, dealing with this Belly Bolt... Oh, God. I mean, I was going to say, they have Terra Blast. Yeah, and they did have Taunt. Ugh. That's why I was saying, like, Bullet Seed may have been better. It is Terra Blast. Okay. That's fine, I guess. Because now what I can do is U-turn into Mimikyu, break Disguise, and then just Bullet Seed to try to KO it. They switch. Okay, what are you bringing out? Chi-Yu. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great switch in. Dude, Choice Band Corviknight! That did 50%! Let's go ahead into Tusk, because I feel like an electric type attack on that slot feels fairly likely. Okay. I think if we get 5 hits, it's definitely a KO. 4 might be a roll. I think we'll get it. Oh, it's so close. Oh, 4 and we don't get the KO. Okay, it is just Parabolic Charge, though, so I'll take that. Yeah, they actually KO their own Chi-Yu. That's fine. Bonnet gets crit, which is a little less than ideal, but it's fine. I'm kind of worried about getting, like, 1v4'd by this Belly Bolt, though, no lie. want to just KO Mimikyu here. I don't know what's stronger, though. Like, Headlong Rush, Sucker Punch. Or, like, Break Disguise and then Bullet Seed. I'm thinking we just Break the Disguise and Bullet Seed. And we give up the Tusk. I guess Mimikyu could have Protect here, but would you really run Protect as well as, you know, Taunt? I wouldn't think so. I guess you could run Protect, Taunt, Play Rough, Shadow Sneak as the moveset. No Trick Room, no Will-O-Wisp. Oh, they actually burned the Tusk. Okay. That's fine with me. Because Tusk's damage output right now is not that essential anyway. Let's see if Bullet Seed KOs. It's looking close once again. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits. You gotta spawn it. Nice. Okay, now it's a 4v1. We've played around this Belly Bolt. Should survive. Do we survive a Terra Blast is my question. Actually, oh, does that KO us? Nice. Okay, we survive. Sweet. No! Oh my gosh, the para. Like, without the para, we definitely win, because then I just outspeed Spore. I think it's still okay, like, but, like, the fact that Belly Bolt could 1v4 this right now is kind of nuts. I'll switch out into Flutter right now. How fast are we? 52. I don't remember Belly Bolt's base speed, to be honest. Alright, I'll just try to Spore it. Yeah, I think if that didn't happen, we had this wrapped up more or less, because I'd be able to put it to sleep. I guess you could get a 1-turn wake, but a 2-turn wake, and we should just immediately win. But yeah, I don't know. Like, my plan on dealing with Belly Bolt in this game was essentially get it down to this situation. This is really scary. I know I have Choice Band, like, Brave Bird to finish things off. Okay, I think I'll go Tusk first. I think the idea is to, like, chip away at it, because the thing is that you can't heal back from Great Tusk right now. Oh, it's probably Assault Vest, so I think I want to go for Choice Spec Psyshock instead of, like, a Moonblast or a Shadow Ball. Yeah, so we're going to Rock Slide Psyshock here. Rock Slide doesn't miss. Nice. 25%, I'll take that. Activates Electromorphosis. Choice Spec Psyshock from Flutter now. That's really good damage. Okay. They just end up Thunderbolting. That should be fine, because now I just Choice Band Brave Bird you. Actually, they don't even KO. Nice. That should be game over then, right? Psyshock, Rock Slide again. But yeah, like, I was really worried about Belly Bolt in this one, and their decision to not Terra early caught me off guard. But yeah, like, I think sometimes you can get baited into thinking, oh, my opponent doesn't have a good defensive Terra here because they didn't go for it. But the main thing I wanted to make sure is that I didn't get baited by that. But yeah, Belly Bolt was really scary here because I felt like I didn't really have that many ways to knock it out, especially with the Assault Vest and Flying Terra. So that's why I was, like, hyper-focusing on knocking out everything around it and then putting myself in, like, a, you know, literally 4v1 position against it. So yeah, fortunately, it didn't, like, do enough damage to the rest of our team early on, and one thing that was really huge, I think, was, like, Corviknight being able to pivot out with that Choice Band U-turn, and Brute Bonnet just dealing so much damage with Bullet Seed into things like Mimikyu, as well as the Chi-Yu as well. So, yeah. Alright, what do we got here? Chien-Pao, Dragonite, Flutter, Chi-Yu, Dondozo, Tatsu. Feels fairly standard. The Murkrow has to come out here because of Haze. If I were my opponent, I would prioritize knocking out Murkrow immediately, so I would lead a combination of, like, Dragonite, Chien-Pao, and Flutter. So I think we can use Corviknight to deal with that early on. Corviknight Flutter is really interesting to me. Chi-Yu's a little too frail. I could Ghost Terra, though, but they could Sucker Punch me. Scarf Tusk is not bad either, thanks to Rock Slide. I could Steel Terra, Rock Slide, Brave Bird, turn 1. That's not terrible, actually. The main thing is I just really want Murkrow in the back. think I'm gonna go Corv plus Flutter, Murkrow, and then... I mean, the reality is they might not even bring Dondozo, right? So I have to take that into account, which is always annoying. I think Bonnet is still solid here, though, thanks to Sucker Punch. But yeah, I think like what's tricky about this matchup in best of one is my opponent could just like straight up not bring Dondozo at all, and like my Murkrow pick ends up being somewhat ineffective. I haven't utilized Sunny Day so far while playing with this team, and so using that to activate Photosynthesis also could be valuable. Some food for thought. Yeah, it is Dragonite Champow. Cool. Feel like this lead should favor me, but honestly, I'm not even that sure. Honestly, a big question here is the speed on Dragonite. Because I would love to just go straight for Brave Bird on a Dragonite plus Dazzling Gleam turn 1. They switch. Nothing switching in can take this, though, right? I'm honestly curious how much Dozo takes from this. Oh, do I just feint for my spinner? Okay, that was close. So we get Gleam off. I'm pretty sure Dozo just feints here. You have the defense drop, and I have Choice Band. I'll take it. Let's go, Choice Band Corviknight. However, this means now Murkrow in the back's feeling a little bit awkward. That's okay, I guess. Should be Tatsu as their last one, I would guess. I think we sacrifice... there is value actually to switching this out. They might have Sucker Punch, though, and I think it's not worth taking that much damage. So, I will just Brave Bird, Chien-Pao here, and Dazzling Gleam. I'm going to go for a Terra. I don't really know what they can do against Corviknight here, so let's see. Flying Terra, normal Terra. Okay, it's normal Terra, so they have extreme speed pressure. Okay for now. Don't know if you're banded. Yeah, they just go for another spinner. That's fine. We're trading pretty aggressively right now, but I think it's more in my favor. Brick Break. Okay. What item is that going to have? I would think Choice Band or Assault Vest. See, the downside is, like, I brought 2 Pokemon to deal with Dondozo. I think we go Murkrow first to Tailwind. They bring out Tatsugiri. I think it should be okay. Murkrow's Foul Play here is actually really significant for damage as well. It's funny seeing the 2 birds next to each other. Corviknight's like 5 billion sizes bigger than Murkrow. I find that kind of funny. I still have my Terra available. It's not really valuable. Honestly, Ghost Murkrow is probably the best value I can get out of it. Maybe I just send it here, right? Because like, there's no point in going for a Terra on this, and I really don't see a point in going for a Terra on this either, quite frankly. So, Choice Band, Brave Bird into the Tatsu slot. Tailwind. I was talking about going for a Terra. I ended up not doing it this turn. The Icy Wind, but that's just going to bounce back. Okay. That implies Choice Scarf, so Brave Bird I think should get the one-hit knockout here. Dude, Choice Band Corviknight is a beast. Oh my goodness. We feint from Recoil. But it's a 2v1 now. I could be Lum Dragonite, I guess, is my problem. Yeah, a Terra there would have actually been really good for me. But it's fine. I think now I just bring out Brute Bonnet. I go for Terra to get around Extreme Speed. And just Terra Foul Play. Bullet Seed. This is why I was saying I should have gone for it last turn, though, right? Because it's like... Icy Wind also did more damage than I expected, honestly. if Sunny Day into Bullet Seed was actually the better play there. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to KO from this, but that's fine. Smart of them to not click Extreme Speed there, but I guess if Foul Play might just KO them here. Let's see. Nice. Yeah, the Ghost Tower just covers for Extreme Speed going into that slot. So, that was a really interesting one. It was pretty scary, but I was able to successfully predict that they were not going to like bring Dondozo in the early game. I honestly really didn't expect the Dondozo to just switch in there and get that KO. One thing that was huge here was Flutter surviving the Chien-Pao Ice Spinner. That's probably one thing that you do want to like EV for when you use Flutter with choice specs, right? Because like Chien-Pao's generally max speed, and so if you're not max speed Flutter, then they're just going to outpace you for sure. If they are max speed, and that can be really scary. But surviving and getting that Dazzling Gleam off was huge because we did 50% to Dozo and, you know, chunked at the Chien-Pao, or brought Chien-Pao down to 1 HP as well. But Corviknight was definitely the MVP in that one, it felt like. We got the knockout straight up onto the Dondozo with it. We were able to get that one-hit knockout onto the Flutter, sorry, not the Flutter, the Tatsugiri as well. So, yeah. Okay, what do we got here? Very standard balance team. Palafin, Arcanine, King Gambit, Flutter, Ting Lu, and Wo-Chien. I haven't clicked Sunny Day today. I'm sad. Is this the match for it? It could be. My brain always hurts when I see Ting Lu and Wo-Chien on the same team because I'm like, okay, they can decrease my attack, they can decrease my special attack. I don't know, this Corviknight Tusk lead is pretty awesome. I always want to bring Bonnet against Palafin. I haven't really brought Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu. I think it's Specs Flutter though. I'm not leading Chi-Yu Flutter in a lot of these matches because they just have so much like offense I can threaten it. For example, in the previous game, there was the threat of Choice Band Extreme Speed, to which we could have got on around by going for Terra with Ghost Chi-Yu, but I don't know. I feel like I'm not a very strong Chi-Yu Flutter player because it's just like such a frail duo as a lead. So maybe I should be leading it more just to get experience with it, quite frankly, but you know. I think, yeah, once again, like, the problem with Murkrow here is that, like, okay, I can use it to click Tailwind, but one, I'm already faster with a lot of the Pokemon anyway, and two, once I click Tailwind, what in the world am I going to do with it, right? Because, like, the reality is if you're leading Murkrow, it's pretty hard to switch safely into something in the back, since most of the Pokemon are relatively frail on this team. So let's see what they go with. Super Dolphin. I love that name. And Flutter. With Corviknight and Tusk. Okay. Booster Flutter. It's definitely a Steel Terra with Great Tusk here to start. It's Brave Bird into one of these two slots, and Steel Terra. I mean, I guess it could be Headlong Rush as well into Flutter. Personally, I think I like Brave Bird into Flutter. No, I mean, Palafin's likely to switch here, though, right? So, like, Brave Bird into Super Dolphin, Steel Terra, EQ. Ah, they stayed in. That's not good. I mean, it's actually not that bad, though, right? Like, if I end up getting Earthquake off, it's a lot of damage on a both. Brave Bird would finish off Palafin. The thing here is I think I could see Palafin at protecting. So, let's see what Super Dolphin's up to. Ah, it's going to be a Terra. Okay. I wonder if EQ Brave Bird actually just KOs this thanks to Choice Band Corv. I think they're doubling up on a Corv here. Not even sure they KO, to be honest, but let's find out. Yeah, Water Terra Mystic Water, probably, right? That's a great play. Yeah, Corviknight's been the MVP, I feel like, of the games today, and my opponent did a really good job prioritizing it early. Very smart. Okay. Well, we can go out in a bonnet. This feels a little bad, but I think I'm going to Sucker Punch and then just EQ here. Super Dolphin switches. Could be Wo-Chien. Changjiang. It is, yeah. Protect. Really good play. It's okay for now. The only downside is obviously I ended up self-earthquaking, but I felt like I wanted to put on pressure that turn. I think this next turn is really interesting, by the way, because like Sucker Punch onto a Flutter is like such an obvious play that I could go for like Bullet Seed, predicting it to switch out. Do I really need to make that prediction though? We should survive an attack from it anyway. I also don't hate Spore here. Could go into Arcanine, I suppose. I'm going to Spore Flutter, reading let they switch, and go out into my Flutter. Nice. It could be Arcanine, though, so maybe not entirely nice. Palafin? Nice. Okay, that's big. That was a really good turn one by them. Way to assess that like Corviknight was the big threat. I could have gone Headlong Rush into Flutter and then switch out into Brute Bonnet. Like that's how I'd respond to their turn one play and get a huge advantage. Put Super Dolphin to sleep. Pollen Puff here is fine because that slot is now just bullet punchable. Not bullet punchable, bullet seedable. Yeah, I like the sleep more than just getting the KO because it denies them a free switch in immediately. So, Bullet Seed and Moonblast. They can't Terra now. I think the fourth Mon has to come out right now. Dinglu. That's cute. Sure. That's fine. Because Bullet Seed and Moonblast should do a ton of damage here. I would think Specs Moonblast is still a 2-hit KO. Oh, it was almost just a 1-hit KO. Wow. 1... 2, 3, 4. Get a crit, which is quite nice. Nice, 5 hits too. Pretty lucky. Okay. Pollen Puff. Does that KO us? Nice. My one fear right now is... So I need to conserve Brute Bonnet to Bullet Seed to finish off the... I think switching to Steel Tusk here is fine. And then just Moonblasting into the Tinglu slot is fine. Especially because I expect that to have Assault Vest. Oh, they actually ended up forfeiting. I don't think this game was 100% over yet, but I do think I was super well positioned. Yeah, I'm honestly really proud about how I played that one. After my opponent made a really good turn one play. I think that the big thing was getting that Spore off into the Palafin slot, because it essentially slowed down all the pressure that they had immediately in that given game state. So, yeah. But the main thing is essentially... I think the thing about Wo-Chien is that, like, it's really bulky. It's quite difficult to knock out, but it does not put on offensive pressure, right? So I could use that to my advantage, saying, okay, well, I know that basically Wo-Chien's not doing very much. I mean, I guess it does have offensive pressure against Brute Bonnet, but the reality is that, like, I could just keep doubling onto the slot next to the Wo-Chien, and essentially, like, Wo-Chien was sticking around for a little bit, and even though they got that really nice Pollen Puff into Palafin by putting it to sleep, like, we just had so much pressure between Moonblast and Bullet Seed, as well as Sucker Punch, because that slot felt like it was essentially locked down. So it's like Wo-Chien can stay on the field, but it can't really even do anything. It won't be able to get any more Pollen Puffs off because it'll just knock out whatever is next to it before it even gets the move. So Yeah, and I think with the switch in that I was trying to make in a Great Tusk while Moonblasting the Tinglu, if that was just Assault Vest Tinglu, like we cover for that, then you either bring out Palafin, which hasn't taken any sleep turns yet, or Fluttermane, which now I have Scarf Tusk and you've lost your booster energy as well. Then I can just Moonblast into Wo-Chien and go for like Headlong Rush onto that slot. So, and that would also allow me to conserve Brute Bonnet for the end game. I do think like it was maybe possible for my opponent to win with the late game Palafin just because the Brute Bonnet was such low HP at that point. And so if they get like a quick 1-turn wake, maybe something's possible. But yeah, it would have been a really uphill climb, so I can get why they forfeited there. All right. Last game here, and we've got Talonflame, Garchomp, Chien-Pao, Arcanine, Hands, and Fluttermane. This is pretty similar to the team that Wolf and Aaron Trailer brought to Fort Wayne Regionals. They had Farigiraf over Arcanine, I believe, but I think all the other mons were the same. Banded Corv once again is pretty sweet, I think. I'm trying to figure out who I don't want to bring in this one. I do feel compelled to bring Murkrow to match their Tailwind. I don't know, I kind of like Murkrow plus Corv. And then Scarf Tusk in the back. Bonnet feels a little too slow paced and passive for me in this one. I'm not sure. It's like a little hard to spore without knowing their items because it could be Goggles on Talonflame, Grass Terra on a lot of different mons like Arcanine and Hands. It could be Goggles on Hands. I don't think it's necessarily a bad bring. Fire Terra also means I'd be weak to Earthquake still. Like Flutter feels generally pretty good here. But I'm not sure. Let's see how it plays out. This is our first Tailwind matchup that we're going up against while using this team, so I think that makes things pretty interesting. I would think they would lead Talonflame here. Yeah, Talonchomp. Okay, that works for me. Garchomp's in a really awkward spot right now. I don't know if Talonflame has Flare Blitz is the thing. I also don't think I actually want to click Tailwind on turn 1, because I can just Prankster Tailwind next turn anyway. So I think I'm going to do the thing where I intentionally leave Talonflame out on the field, essentially. Brave Bird into Chomp. And Foul Play. Double up into it. Chomp could protect here. Oh. Okay, that works. As long as we don't get flinched. Crit. Wow, talk about a turd. Okay, okay. That makes things a little bit more challenging for us. Surely they click Tailwind with Talonflame now. So I don't even think I want to match their Tailwind here. Do they have Prio in the back? Yep. Okay. Yeah, so the whole point is I'm trying to stagger my Tailwind so I get an extra turn at the end because I've got priority with Prankster anyway. Oy. I can't Tailwind now. This is still far from over though, so I really don't want to give up because I think Tusk plus, whoops, don't want to run. Tusk plus Flutter could always pull off a comeback for us. That is the thing. I put myself at risk of getting flinched, right, when I let my opponent move before me, but obviously in this game, it was like the odds are pretty slim to get flinched 3 out of 4 hits, no Rock Slide misses, and a crit along the way. And it's like if I Tailwind and they just Tailwind on turn 1, you know, it's like, I could have had such a positive turn 1. If we don't flinch with either KO Garchomp, turn 2 Tailwind, we're in such good shape. Anyway, I'm going to Tailwind now, and then just Brave Bird into Chomp. Oh, actually, yeah, the problem is because I took so much damage, they can just KO me. Actually, with that, I don't think I can win. I needed to Tailwind last turn. I got a little too fancy staggering Tailwind, because it's like, yeah, I kind of forgot about the fact I didn't get rid of Gale Wings at all. Tailwind last turn would have given me a shot, because then I'd have Scarf Tusk under Tailwind plus Flutter. And then I could just, like, spam Rock Slide and Dazzle. So even though I got, like, really unlucky, I honestly just didn't play well after... Like, that turn 2 play was not smart. I tunnel vision too hard on staggering my Tailwind in this one. I guess we go for the Hail Mary. Let Tusk is faster. Steal Terra. Go for a flinch. But this is probably over. If I actually clicked Tailwind with Murkrow last turn... sorry, not last turn, the turn before on turn 2... when I ended up flinching again, I'd actually be in much better shape. It'd still be a somewhat difficult comeback, because I don't know what they have in the back, and they have the Terra advantage. No, not necessarily. I guess I wouldn't have had to gone for a Steel Terra here. I would have gone Fairy Terra with Flutter, likely. The problem is I would have locked myself into 2 attacks, and my opponent has 2 healthy Pokemon in the back. Yeah, Chomp's just faster here. Load survives, so I'll get a double knockout. We'll see what they have in the back, but with Tailwind still being up on their side, there's no way to win this one. But yeah, great example of a game where, yeah, obviously I got super unlucky, but I didn't play perfectly, and I'd rather critique my own play than focus on the RNG. And, you know, getting crit double flinched immediately to start the game is not going to happen most of the time. I don't regret my turn 1 play. I think it was honestly really good, because I don't like the idea of setting up Tailwind immediately, especially because my opponent was trying to stagger their Tailwind. If I had clicked Tailwind on turn 1, then on turn 2, Talonflame would have been able to Tailwind immediately after. It was hands plus Chien-Pao. So yeah, this endgame was always going to be kind of hard, because I felt like I needed to click Rock Slide with Tusk, but if I click Rock Slide, I can't go for ground-type attacks, right? I also can't go for ground-type attacks with Flutter next to me. So, yeah, the reality is that, like, I just lost too many Pokemon too quickly in this one. Dazzle Rock Slide here. Take out, and we just KO the Flutter now with Chien-Pao. Yeah. GG. If I had gone Tailwind turn 2 instead of trying to foul play there, it still would have been an uphill battle, honestly. I'm trying to think if I brought the right Pokemon in this one. Chi-Yu could have been okay against this in the end game. Brute Bonnet's okay. I do think I need Murkrow. I guess the thing is I didn't actually get my Tailwind up at all in that game, so maybe I didn't know. I mean, I think needed to respond naturally. Yeah, the main play I can think of doing differently was turn 2 Tailwinding. I guess I didn't necessarily know what Pokemon my opponent had in the back yet either. Didn't necessarily need a Steel Terra there with Tusk, but I don't think it really would have made a difference. I don't really like bringing Bonnet into that matchup in a best of 1. I think it's like one thing I could consider is leading Bonnet though, I suppose, as an adjustment. And yeah, I think Chi-Yu in the back could have been pretty interesting as well. But the problem with Chi-Yu is that it just gets dunked on by Sacred Sword, so I would need to have extra Tailwind relative to my opponent. And like having 1 extra turn often isn't enough, because I would just Heat Wave, they would protect on that last turn, and then they could just Sacred Sword me instead. So I actually think we brought the right 4 Pokemon. Maybe something like a Corv and Tusk lead is a little bit more compelling. Sorry, not Corv. Murkrow Tusk, because I can like Rock Slide immediately. But I guess they could pressure me with Brave Bird. So I honestly like Corviknight plus Murkrow as a lead. Yeah, I think turn 1 most of the time like should work in our favor. Not most of the time actually, because like Rock Slide's chance of flinching one of the 2 is pretty high, right? It's a 30% chance to flinch 1 Pokemon, so 70% chance to not flinch. So it's only a 49% chance for them to not flinch either Mon, right? So it's essentially a coin flip as to whether or not they get a flinch. That calculation, by the way, doesn't take into account accuracy. It's slightly lower because it's 90% to hit each Rock Slide as well. So like 81% to hit both Rock Slides, as well as flinch calculated on top. So it's more in our favor to come out the turn without a flinch on both Mons and then like knock out the Garchomp, but it's not like that. It's like a coin flip that's just slightly more in my favor essentially. But I think if we had gotten that, then they go into Chien-Pao or Hands. If you go into Hands, I could actually consider Ghost Terra Murkrow turn 2 to Tailwind. Because I don't think Brave Bird would have finished me off. And if I get that Tailwind, then Tusk plus Flutter is decently well positioned for the end game. I think the downside is by having all 3 Choice Mons in this one, like, you could see the downside of like losing Pokemon early, because then I'm stuck with these Choice Mons in the back, and I'm not sure like which move to actually lock into. So, yeah. But This team is really fun. It's really fast paced. So thank you so much as always for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Huge thank you to Jeudy for building and sharing this team. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.